And now it's the Deborah Kobylt Live and the Little Italy podcast.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for our shows today. We have a very special guest, Rick Joseph Caruso. We're going to go formal here, Rick. Everybody
Thank
knows
you.
you as, exactly. You've developed some of Los Angeles's and Southern California's finest destinations. The Grove comes to mind. Everybody knows the Grove. You are a philanthropist. You were candidate for mayor this past year, very close. You're a husband, a father, and a very proud Italian American. And we're continuing our Italian Heritage series. So thanks for joining us to talk about all that.
Thank you, Deborah. Proud to be here and great meeting you.
Tell me a little bit about growing up. Like, what were some of your fondest memories growing up as an Italian American kid?
Well, I have a lot of them because both of my grandparents, my paternal and maternal, they all came from Italy. One ended up in Chicago. So we spent a lot of time during the summers in Chicago, in the old Italian neighborhood on Mozart Street, 5915 South Mozart. I still remember the address. It was full fourplex, with the porch, and a lot of it was a lot of family, a lot of dinners, grandma doing a lot of great cooking. Very, very humble place. And a lot of catching lightning bugs, like a lot of people do in Chicago during the summers, and hanging out. And then out here was the same thing. My grandfather was a gardener. My grandmother was a homemaker. Every Sunday night was dinner at their home. Again, very humble beginnings. And, the greatest memories literally were around the table and being in the kitchen and helping my grandmother cook and, trying to steal meatballs and getting in trouble and, hit with the wooden spoon. So,
oh no,
but it was just great. And I'll just say this. And last night, we've carried on that tradition. At our home, we had 22 people, all of family around the table for dinner at our home. And it's really one of the greatest blessings I think we have. And I hope the tradition continues throughout the generation.
Oh, I hope so too. And we uphold the same. But I've been to your home and I know that you do that. Like, this is for real. It's Sunday night, it's dinner time. If you happen to be at the house, you're invited to. But there have been events, and I believe that, the News Girl events, it's Sunday and it's your family day. And I really respect that no matter what's going on. And I think that's so important when raising a family, and it really keeps the community together. By the way, we may be related because we're both from the Calabria region. So
there you go.
we'll have to check out the tree.
That's
I'm going to jump
blood.
a little. Good blood and great food, Rick. Great food. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. You went to law school at Pepperdine. You're a USC undergrad. A lot of people don't know that Dad started Dollar a Day Rent-A-Car. I love the name, and then it became Dollar.
Mm-hmm.
But you had this great business idea that you brought to him about parking lots. Can you tell our people that?
Well, Dad started Dollar a Day Rent-A-Car. And as the company continued to grow, it became an airport provider, right? Like Hertz, Avis, and National. In the old days, you go and get your car up at the counter. So they needed parking lots adjacent to airports. And I went to Pop, who was my best friend. I just love my dad. And I said, listen, your use of capital is much better to buy cars because that's where you make your money versus buying land. And would you let me go ahead of you, buy the land? I'll lease it back to you. And all I needed to do, I was practicing law at the time, asphalt it, stripe it, and put lights. And I could go to the bank with their lease and get it financed because I wanted to build up, my own personal business and my own wealth. And I frankly wanted to find an avenue where I didn't have to practice law anymore. And he was very generous, gave me the opportunity to do that, did a number of those deals, well over a dozen of them around the country, and then took that same idea to Enterprise, to Avis, to National, and had, a pretty good portfolio of parking lots adjacent to airports, which, proved to become very valuable as airports expanded.
Right. And therefore, you were able to fund your own property development ideas, correct?
Mm-hmm. Right. Because, because as airports expanded, they wanted to buy that land.
Yeah.
There's a very great provision in the Internal Revenue Code that says if a government entity buys your land under threat of condemnation, you have 3 years to reinvest without paying taxes. And that allowed me to take those funds and build the retail properties that are in our portfolio today, like Calabasas and Westlake, Encino, et cetera.
All of your properties, you're right. I believe, now let's go to the Valley for a moment. Encino, as you said, Calabasas, the Commons, they all have a common theme. I feel safe when I'm there. I love some of the different stores that end up in all of your properties. They vary.
Thank you.
But they seem to have a theme. Did you always have that in your head that you wanted to do this? And was it a plan or did it just evolve?
Well, I never had a plan because I never had a background in development. I never had a background in retail or building, shopping areas. What I did was, going back to our Italian roots, as you know very well, I was always taken back when we would visit family in Italy with the piazzas and the evolution of the piazza as the day would go. And late in the afternoon, how it would fill up and people be come out and have an early dinner and the kids are running around and there's music. And I was thinking to myself, Los Angeles, we have the greatest weather in the world. Why don't we have these outdoor spaces where people can enjoy? And that was the inspiration. And if you look at my projects along a timeline, you'll see that the open space just continued to grow. There was more trees and lawn and fountains and space. But the underlying notion for all of this is I'm going to be in the business of creating places that give people joy, that add enrichment to their lives. And hopefully they'll shop and dine and hang out because we're creating beautiful places just to hang out with family and friends.
But they are family places, right? Even at the Grove, I love how you've got Sinatra usually playing sometime during the evening. Homage to your roots, right?
Right.
There's a statue of your children there. So to me, as soon as I get there, this says, this guy is a family guy. Family first, I always like to say. That's what my dad and mom used to say, family first. So the fact that you've incorporated that into your properties, like how do you even go about planning that when you're, most people can't even build a house in 2 or 3 years, right?
Yeah.
In just a couple of decades, look what you've done. And I believe the Grove has more visitors than Disneyland. Is that correct? And I believe the Great Wall of China.
Yeah, that's correct. Well, Deborah, I got a great team of people. So it's not just me. It's a team of very creative, innovative people. And we've got the permission and the freedom to think big, to come up with some crazy ideas. If I was in the business of building shopping centers, I could never do what I do. Because you would never build a shopping center like the Grove. You'd never put a park in it. You'd never put fountains in it. It's too costly.
Right.
You would certainly never put a trolley in it. But if you're in the business of creating joy and enriching people's lives, it gives you this huge path to go do really fun, creative things that just touch somebody's heart and soul, that is in sync with how people live their lives, and allows people to decompress and be in a better place. And especially in a world, because our attendance is way up on all of our properties. And I think a big part of it is our world is upside down in so many different ways. And people are looking for safety. They're looking for joy. They're looking for a place to share and create memories. And, I'm very grateful that we've got properties that give people that platform and opportunity.
You said our world is upside down. You ran for Los Angeles mayor. We all thought you were winning. It was very close. You said that you wanted to run. And then when you lost the race, you said it ignited a fire in me. You take on a loss and you turn it into a win. I know it was a great disappointment, right? We were all disappointed, but none probably more than you and your family. So talk to me about how you were able to move on from that, to pivot from that, and to do something for the people of Los Angeles, to continue to do something for them.
It's a great question, but I really do believe that there is a reason for everything, but you can't stop there. Then you have to say, okay, I'm going to take that event and I'm going to make it into something positive. And the way I'm doing that is I'm staying engaged with the community that so many communities around Los Angeles that we got to know, so many small businesses, so many women-owned businesses, businesses that don't have a voice, communities that don't have a voice, that need to have a champion in their corner, finding ways to get the homeless off the street. I know it can be done, and we're working on doing that in a very meaningful way. So we are ramped up, we're engaged, we're busy with a lot of different efforts throughout the city. And no different than I've done for 40 years in the city, I'm going to work really hard to try to make it a better city. And I don't take it as the election loss as an overall negative, because the experience was incredible, Deborah. And you do know my family, and you know Tina and the kids. We are so close as a family, but somehow we got even closer because we were on a mission to do some really good things. And it was really, really rewarding.
I saw it in you. And whenever you went to the different communities, you seemed almost the most joyful that I've ever seen you, meeting the different people in the different communities. What kind of impact did that have on you? And I'm sure you visited communities that you hadn't visited before. You know, as a TV reporter, you do the same thing. You're in the news van, you're in a community you didn't even know existed. So what kind of impact did that have? And I'm sure it's still I'm sure it's still lasting, right? You think about it, or somebody that you met at a delicatessen, you think, I've got to go back and visit them and see how they're doing, right?
Oh, 1,000%. And I do. I know you do. I just went down to an aquarium that we were in that's owned by a Japanese woman, just to visit her. She's on West Adams in Los Angeles. And so I go back to these small businesses all the time, literally every week. It had a profound impact. And there was one day we were down in a part of Los Angeles, a wonderful part of Los Angeles, sort of long forgotten part of Los Angeles. And we were there with a lot of the residents, and there was a lot of hugs going on. And they were hugging Tina, they were hugging me, they were hugging the kids. And I told the kids, I said, that hug is hope. And to be able to come into somebody's community and to give people hope, because so many elected officials just don't go visit, they don't care. And people feel voiceless, and to make them feel like they have a voice and they have a future, that was just an incredibly rewarding experience. And I still go out to those communities, and we go out and have lunches and dinners, and we meet with people. A couple of the people we've become very good friends with. So it's very rewarding to me.
Does it make you cry? Because I know you like to say you're a crybaby. You cry a lot. My dad did too. I think it's an Italian guy thing. You know, my husband, John. John never cries, my husband, right? But all the Italian men I know, you know, you serve them a meatball that tastes great, they start crying. But what gets you going? Rick, what gets you going?
Listen, I am a crybaby, as you know. I cried last night giving a toast to my wife because it was her birthday. I had all my strength mustered up, and I figured I'm going to get through this. And as the kids would say, Pop, we know you're not going to get through it. So I lasted until about the last sentence, and then I broke down. But I cried a lot on the campaign trail. Part of it was seeing how so many people in Los Angeles are living at or below the poverty line. And in spite of that, the absolute goodness of these families and the dedication to the next generation, the belief in an education, the desire to just have a safe neighborhood to raise their kids, the opportunity to want to work. There was and is a pureness to that. And that made me cry. So I did a lot of crying on the campaign trail, but I'm going to go down. That's probably going to be somewhere on my tombstone, but that's okay.
Let's talk a little bit about philanthropy. What are you involved with the Caruso Family Foundation? What touches your heart the most? And how do you decide to give where you give?
Well, it's all centered around children, families at or below the poverty line, to give them an education that is as good as anybody else in this city can get, to give them health care that they would never otherwise be able to get, to treat them with dignity and respect, but also to give them a lot of hope. And either that's through Aparo Los Niños, which we support the school on Skid Row, which is in the middle of the worst sea of inhumanity that you could find. And there's this school that is literally dropped down from the heavens that are providing this incredible pocket of safety and education for these young kids. Operation Progress, same thing down in the Watts area with many of the Catholic schools that we provide scholarships and underwriting for these schools. So frankly, they can stay open. And we do it through KEC for Children's Services, on healthcare. But that's our focus. If it has to do with a child and a child being given an opportunity to excel and be the best person they could possibly be, Tina and I, sign us up. And all the kids work there and we work there. It's not just about giving money. It's also about physically being there and being a part of it and knowing the families and becoming part of their life and then becoming part of our life.
Can our problems here in Los Angeles be solved through politics, or is it best to be done by a private citizen such as yourself and others?
Well, I firmly believe that to be the mayor of Los Angeles and to be very effective, you have to have CEO skills. You're running a very complex enterprise. It's an enterprise to serve others, but nonetheless, it's a massive enterprise with thousands of employees and a multi-billion-dollar budget. So most elected officials that are coming out of the legislature or whatnot, they're just not equipped. They don't have the skill set to make good, solid decisions. And I think also we've got to get elected officials that are mostly concerned about doing what's right for those that they serve versus trying to get reelected, because that's what you do. And so I think all the problems that we're facing in LA can be solved. I've solved many of them before. I solved rising crime before. I solved a whole massive business problem with the utility industry before. So that would have immensely impacted, especially the families that are at risk in this city with utility rates we solved. So I've done it before. It can be done again. And I hope, the homeless problem gets solved. Completely solvable, in my opinion. But it takes a lot of will and a lot of courage and, frankly, a lot of good intellect to solve the problem.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about you personally and your religion and your faith, and that you met the Pope.
Yeah.
What was that? Wow. What was that like? You're the second family I know this year who met the Pope. I've got to get on that. Tell me, right? What did that feel like for you?
Well, it was indescribable. I mean, honestly, I wish I had a better selection of words, but I think he's a remarkable man.
Yeah.
I think he's, blazing a trail. He's fighting the good fight. He's trying to change the Catholic Church to be more open and welcoming. He's trying to follow Vatican II. He is following Vatican II. There's a lot of the elders in that church that want a very doctrinaire, very conservative church, and that's not what he wants. He wants people to be welcomed in the Catholic Church. And so to be there with my family, to be invited to meet him, we spent 30 minutes together. We laughed together and shared stories. We cried together, actually. It was one of the great days of my life. And I just will never forget him meeting my kids and my wife and us spending that quality time together. So, and I'm a big fan of his.
Did you stand there for a moment and think, gosh, if mom and dad could see this now? Because I knew your parents and they died just a few years ago. Yeah. And does that run through your mind? Because it runs through mine all the time. I know you knew my parents as well. Yeah. And, gosh, if only they could be here. Did that happen when you were there?
Oh, sure. Yeah, sure. Now, you're absolutely right, Deborah. And especially, being in our native country where our roots are and all of that, and him speaking Italian to us. He had an interpreter. He's most comfortable speaking Italian. I thought about mom and dad. And, my uncle was a Franciscan priest. And So he was very much part of the church and very much part of our life. We had dinner with him every Sunday. You know, as a kid, it was horrifying. We used to have to go to confession to your uncle. I mean, oh my God, Lord. No,
oh my gosh.
like nothing worse.
No, confession is bad enough, but then you have to, tell your uncle. I never knew what to say at confession, because what do you do? You're 7 years old. What could you have done, right? I would, put a little bit of steak on the ground for my dog, and I would feel so guilty, and I would tell the priest, and then you have to go pray. But those memories, you're bringing me back actually to the confession and the whole thing, which is part of our culture. This is what we did, right?
Yeah, that's right.
This is what we did. So tell me a little more about when you're at home. Sunday family dinners are still a thing. What would you like to tell our audience about the importance of trying to get that community, that family back? See, I think we're all splintered here. And I don't want to sound like some old person, but we're always on the phone. We're always busy. We're distracted. And if we could just have dinner with our neighbor, with our community, is there anything that, you seem to have done it right? Any advice you could give to people?
My advice is, and I don't think I'm qualified to give people advice. I can just tell you what Tina and I did. And Tina was obviously and is an incredibly huge part of this. My toast last night to her is the goodness, the sweetness, and the kindness of my children came from her. And I really do believe that. And but we just had a very simple priority system. The priority was our faith, our family, our friends, and having fun together. And around the table is a very powerful thing. I drove the kids to school every single morning. I did carpool.
You did.
I did. And I picked up the friends. Tina picked them up from school, but I dropped them off in the morning. I never missed a football game, a baseball game, a play, whatever it was. And, it wasn't always easy to do. Because especially when I was practicing law and I didn't control my own schedule like I do today. But if you make it a priority, it makes a difference. Because I will tell you, the signal that you send your children is so powerful when you're there, when they look up in the stands and they see you there. And I also really do believe, and a friend told me this, and I've adopted this as my own, more is caught than taught. Your children watch how you act and how you operate, and that's what they'll start emulating. And that's also when they see that you're always showing up for them. And we've got the most remarkable 4 kids. A lot of it is a good blessing, but a lot of it is just the dedication of family, and they saw that. A lot of it is our faith, and making sure that faith is central in our family life and our discussions. Last night we had our Monsignor, which we always do, our pastor.
Oh, we love him. Oh, we love him. No, of course.
We also had the new bishop in LA, now Bishop Matt. And he's a terrific guy. He's been a friend for 30 years. So we had a lot of good horsepower around the table last night.
Oh, I love that. I would have loved to have been there, actually. What do you want to tell people? What I want people to know about you, which is why I started with your humble beginnings. And I know you only have a few minutes left, but the grandparents, one said, I believe they worked in the coal mines, right? When they came over from Ellis Island. Yes. So you didn't always have it easy. You watched your dad work hard. You watched your grandparents really struggle. And, I know my parents, they worked 2 and 3 jobs to make sure that we went to college. They were proud of that. And so you didn't always have it easy, but as you said, you observed, you watched the good and the bad, right? What would you like to say to people who say, he's got everything? It's easy for him to say, because it wasn't always that way. Is there anything you'd like to say to those people and inspire them a bit?
Sure. Listen, I know it's easy and convenient many times to drop people into categories and say the guy's a billionaire. What is, he's disconnected from reality. The reality is, as you said, I grew up riding in my grandfather's gardening truck and watching him work and working with him. I grew up with my father, who worked very hard, but also got into trouble and ended up going to jail and had to get out of jail and rebuild his business and rebuild his life. And it was a very embarrassing, tough time for him. It was very tough on me as a young child, being teased about that. So yes, I've worked hard and I've been very successful. But the most important thing is I'm very grateful and I respect every human being, no matter where they come from and who they are, because that's the way we were raised. And grateful to live in this great country. I mean, thank God we were all born in this country. And grateful to have the family and the parents that I had that give me the opportunity to do what I did. And just like in your family, it was always about working hard for the next generation.
Yeah.
So the money and the success are nice, but what I value the most, my family, my friends around me, the good health we have, and the blessings that we have in our life.
Favorite Italian food?
Well, I love pasta, but I just try not to eat too much of it now because I try to watch my weight, but I love pasta. I love all Italian food. So I pick a little bit here and there. You know, I try to be good about it, but I miss my mom's cooking. But Tina's a darn good cook. But I miss mom and grandma and sort of that whole vibe that we used to have. But it's all good.
And that's a tough one, right? Because when they passed, a lot of those traditions passed. Even though we carry them on, I'm clearly not the cook my mother is. My 3 sons will tell you that in a minute. So, but we do our best. What's next for you, Rick Caruso?
You know, I'm going to continue to stay involved and engaged in the city that I love and work hard to make it a more livable, safer city for all of us. And I'm going to continue to stay involved in my business. We have a lot of projects and the company's doing well. So I'm very grateful for that. And I just want to stay active for a long, long time and hopefully do good things.
I want to give a shout out to some of the holiday festivities that you're going to be having. I know there's one at the Grove. I believe there's one at the Palisades, probably the Americana. How about we end with that, right? The holidays are coming and there's just a lot of hope, a lot to look forward to.
Well, you're right, Deborah, and thank you for saying that. The holidays are coming and, you know, we love celebrating. I love celebrating everything and we do it on our properties. So we've got Christmas celebrations. We have the menorah lighting. We have a Christmas show here at the Grove Monday, the 13th. So that's right around the corner. We invite everybody to come down. We have an amazing show and fireworks and Santa Claus will be making an appearance here, which is great. And we do that out at the Promenade at Westlake. I think that's on the 17th. We got trees. The tree at the Grove has come in. It's being decorated right now. It smells like Christmas. We have trees at the Palisades Village, out at the Americana. And I think in a very complicated world, we need to lock arms and, you know, celebrate our good fortune and celebrate the holidays. Whatever faith you may have, you are welcome to come to our properties and celebrate it.
One of the best parts is you gather a lot of the little children and you push them toward the front so that they could get that view of Santa. They're really spectacular and they're free. You know, anyone can come. So please, you know, what a great way. You're right. There's so much happening in our city, in our state, our world. It's a great thing to do to just sort of forget about all of that and get a little magic. Thank you for inspiring us, Rick Caruso. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate you joining us very much. And I hope we can come back.
Deborah, thank you. Anytime. I love you, admire you. Thank you for giving me time on your show.
Same, and lots of love to the family. And everybody, you can find our show on YouTube, Facebook. We post promos on Instagram and then on all audio platforms, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts. I mean, just anywhere you're looking for my interview with Rick Caruso, you'll find it. So please tune into Deborah Kobylt Live and our Little Italy podcast. Thank you again for joining us, everybody. Have a good day.